welcome back. You're still watching Daybreak, and we're continuing with the conversation around maize. We've so much spoken about the GM products, but we've not been very detailed in as far as what this window that Kenyans and millers can import duty-free maize into the country for the next 6 months to deal with the current shortage that people are dealing with. But also there are certain voices, and we'll be listening to some of them, that are saying we have stock in our granaries. Make use of that before you import. Let me ask you this, Honorable Hassan, because, Honorable Kagusha, because we've seen before, and you recall when Mwangi Kiunjuri was the Cabinet Secretary of Agriculture, there was that sort of comment that came between him and the President at the Jamhuri ESK showground, and it was the contention about people who had supplied maize to the NCPB. Apparently they had imported, stocked in their granaries, and then dumped them at the NCPB, and now they were being paid before genuine farmers had been paid. What are the measures that have been put in place this time round, or you think should be put in place this time round, to ensure that the import is for what is necessary? It is not just to flood the market and disadvantage farmers who already have stock.
Yeah, so let me first put it clear that when for example, I'd say that the issue of GMO takes the political angle many times, I'm just explaining to our viewers that sometimes some of the issues that are said by politicians do not have much to do with the science. Sometimes it's because of what is more conveniently and politically accepted at that point in time. And that is why I would agree with Honorable Yusuf that the issue of GMOs really shouldn't be about politicians. It shouldn't be about Raila Odinga or William Ruto. So it's a major, or is a broader issue that we need to look at in a more deeper manner. It's also not an issue of whom we would call the moralists, the people who think that the genetically modified substances are harmful, not because they have been proved so scientifically, but because they think they are natural in a way. It's also not just a debate for the scientists who have developed these genetically modified substances. It's a debate for everyone. It's important that we engage in it, particularly because on a daily basis in this country, we are consuming genetically modified food. And people know that. I mean, people know that when they go to hotels in town, fast foods in town, they consume chicken, which is not natural, which is not kienyeji. Yeah? And sometimes you see some people who want to more go for the kienyeji chicken. But we have had this chicken, which is not kienyeji, for the longest time. We have even some of the chips that we consume in some of the fast food international brands that are in this country and in this city. Some of them are actually imported from other countries. When you look at the cereals, for example, that we consume for breakfast, a lot of them are GMOs. So a lot of the processed food that we are taking in this country is GMO. And so one may want to ask, since up to when should we continue importing processed, genetically modified foods, and we take that food and we are okay about it when we are giving away our dollars, our foreign reserves, and then we have to keep on buying these things from other countries. How would it be if, for example, we would then ourselves improve our science and ensure that we are ourselves hopefully producing them even in a more safer manner? The farmers, for example, who complain and who have a problem with their production, for example, I think their problem shouldn't be so much of the imports of the GMOs. It should be much more of the import of maize. Because if you are farming from your little farm or from your large farm, you're farming, let's say, like 100 bags of maize, and if you are to get now improved seeds, or if you are to get the improved GMOs and farm them, for example, maybe you are likely to produce 300 bags and hopefully now sell to NCPB and get more money to do more farming, and then we have food security in the country, other than waiting until we have to import either GMO or non-GMO food, which affects our harvest here in Kenya. Now, having said that, I think and I believe that the long-lasting solution to our problems here, so that we even stop these imports, would and will be irrigating our land. And really, I support the Kenya Kwanza manifesto and arrangement and the big plan that it has today to do 100 dams across the country, which the president has said that he's encouraging PPPs. I know, for example, now as we talk, we already have 56 well-designed dams that are supposed to be implemented. We already have other proposed, almost like a similar number, about 50, which are proposed.
When was that done?
Yeah, I mean, the issue of designing of dams has been continuous. It is a process that has been there. For example, if you go to Nyeri, you have the Karimeno, you have the Narumoro Dam that were actually supposed to have been done in the Jubilee government that were not done, that had already been designed. If you go to other parts of the country, you find the 56 dams. So if we were to take on these 56 dams, for example, and start with implementation through the PPP, through government resources, through the loans, that would hopefully help us as a country to improve our food security and to ensure that we are not relying on imports, whether GMO or not.
I hear you, but to the question of ensuring that we don't fall into the trap of duty-free importation again, what do we do this time?
No, first, let me say the government will need to improve our ability to distribute our food reserves across the country. First, we must ensure that we have the strategic reserves as have been put, and there is a law that safeguards this. We must follow that. And we even have an institution that has been set up by the government to ensure that we have strategic food reserves in the country. Now that we must do. And secondly, we must also ensure that we are able to distribute the food that is produced across the country to all the other parts of the country and do it in a more efficient manner, something that we don't do. For example, I looked at the way we farm in central Kenya. There's a time our people in central Kenya have farmed a lot of pork. And I'm sorry to say this because I know Mheshimiwa here is not a consumer of pork, but it is a delicacy in this country. And you find that people in other cities and in other parts of this country would consume pork if they were given or if it was supplied to them. Now, you find that it is being produced just around Mount Kenya region or in central Kenya. So much of pigs are reared there. Then there's such a big glut, such that the supply overwhelms the demand in that area because every other farm, every other home has pig that they're farming. And eventually what happens, it becomes very unprofitable because nobody can sell to any other because all of them do have their pig. And so what happens eventually? People are pushed out of business because they can't get proper demand. Yet, if you just jump across the next county, there are no pigs. There's nobody who is rearing pigs there. And if only we were able to come up with a distribution channel that these pigs which are reared here are not only consumed here, but they are also distributed across the country to all the other areas, then you find that farmers now will be encouraged because there is demand elsewhere. But the systems in Kenya are such that we have not efficiently improved them. And really, that is what we must be looking at now. And I want to say that as parliamentarians, this will be one of our roles to oversight the executive. And not only to oversight, but also to provide ideas, to provide the way forward, like what we are doing now with the coffee sector. I just told you that I came quite late from a coffee caucus that we were holding yesterday in Machakos, where we are not only now as parliamentarians oversighting, we are generating ideas. And we have been meeting for the last 2 weeks. Yesterday we called the CS in charge of cooperatives, CS Chelungui, and we gave him our thinking. And we are happy that he's buying it. So we as parliamentarians, we are going to do this so that we can guide, so that we don't have these imports every now and then, people hoarding maize, and we have a distribution channel that is going to allow us to be able to reach every part of the country at whatever time, so that people can have food.
I hear you. Honorable Lenguris, what do we do to ensure that, because what he's saying is perfectly in order, but again, whenever there's, what do you call it? Can you listen to the clip first of David Kosing, the Member of Parliament for Pokot South, and what he has to say about the stocks of maize in the Rift Valley?
If the motivation is to feed our people who have hunger, we have enough maize. Mob all the maize in the North Rift and give to our people in Kenya. The minister should not import even one single bag of maize between now and February, March next year, is when we can now say the minister will have mobbed all the maize from our farmers. Then now, if there's no sufficient maize, he can argue. And where is public participation?
All right, so Honorable Lenguris, he's speaking for the North Rift region, that they have stock that needs to be consumed before you can decide to import. But when you look at the numbers, even during the speech of President William Ruto during the Mashujaa celebrations, he said of the deficit that we're experiencing, I think about 4 million bags of maize. So because usually cartels have taken advantage of the window to import more than necessary, what measures do you put in place to ensure that even if you have to import, you just import what is necessary without affecting the local market? Okay, thank you, Sam. I think whatever the MP for Pokot is saying, I don't know whether it's not true. Because one, we border Pokot from east. And I've never seen any maize being grown in Pokot. Maybe at the upper side, I don't know. But he's talking about North Rifts. Oh, North Rift. But because actually where I represent, we are facing the same challenges like Samburu, because we border them. They're actually disturbing us with a lot of cattle rustling. So if we had stopped the cattle rustling and resulted to planting maize, I think they could not be disturbing people from Samburu. So whatever is giving us there is not right, because I'm sure they are getting food supplies like what we are. If they're facing drought, the same way we are facing at Samburu, and they're also relying on relief food. Number two, I think we have a government which is a very vibrant government. We have a young president who is really working around the clock every day to ensure that the country is stable in terms of food, because we are really facing a lot of challenges in this country. He took a country at a very difficult time where there is a lot of drought, there is a lot of insecurity, especially in the areas that I represent. There is a lot of poverty, there is the effects of climate change. So really our president is moving around, and we are, as the parliamentarians, we are also trying to help him to ensure that whatever decision he's going to take, we are putting on regulations that will regularize even the importation of maize to ensure that this country does not run into shortages of food. Because it is true that we are not producing enough for all of us. The food that is in the country is not equal to the population or to the demand that we have as a country. So we always have a deficit, and this has been for so many years. So the measures we are trying to put as the Kenya Kwanza government is to address the food, the shortages of food security at the short term, and also looking at the long term. The issue of... And that's okay, Honorable Lenguris. Yeah. And I do not doubt that you have the best interest for this country. Yes. But the question I'm asking is specific, because it is not the cabinet that will import maize. It is businessmen, sometimes referred to as cartels. And this has happened. You recall that situation that I think it was in 2018. Yeah. Several farmers who had supplied maize to NCPB had not been paid because maize that had been imported by businessmen had been delivered to the NCPB against the rules. So what are those specific measures that you want to take or you are taking to ensure that this time around, yes, open the window, but open the window up to the necessity? Yeah. We are going to put up regulations, because over time we have learned about the cartels. And I think everyone is going to be cautious, from the president, from the deputy president, from the members of parliament, and even from the cabinet that we have just put in place recently. So we are going to put up regulations to ensure that whatever is going to be imported will not end up in the situation we had last time. So once we have a serious president and a serious cabinet and we have regulations in place, we are also inviting even the stakeholders to be cautious so that we don't engage ourselves into what we landed in the other time. Honorable Hassan, what does it take? A serious president, or what specific must be done to ensure that we are not back in the situation that we've been before when it comes to importing maize? Well, I think if there is a necessity to import maize, let's go ahead and import it. But at the moment, what we have been told is that we're going to import GMO maize, which is raised concern about why should we be importing GMO maize, and it's duty-free, which means it will not be sold at the same price as our local maize. So there's a serious problem here.
if there is maize in our country and sufficient maize, why do we need to go and buy from outside? Why don't we allow our markets to harvest that maize and purchase from them? After all, the policy of this government is to support local agriculture, to increase food production. You cannot be doing something like importing maize if you really are serious about supporting the agricultural sector. This is a contradiction in terms. And the point of the cartels has been raised. It is obvious now, if you're going to give this opportunity to the millers, that these millers are not independent people with no interest. Mm-hmm. They are business people. So this is a business deal. Someone is going to make money out of it. And that's why we're saying it should not have been rushed the way it has been rushed. It should have been taken carefully. Some discussion should have taken place. And I think members of parliament from the North Rift have a very good argument in terms of protecting our farmers. And I agree fully with them that if there is sufficient maize in the Rift Valley, we shouldn't be rushing to import maize from outside and destroying that particular market and impoverishing them. Mm-hmm. I think it is the responsibility of the president to protect the farmers of the North Rift, where he comes from. And I think he should hear them before allowing any importation of maize that would have an impact on the food market in our country.
Okay. I just wanted to correct that. The president spoke about a deficit of 10 million bags in terms of the demand of the country versus the production within the country. And he was talking about subsidies for fertilizer, especially for the short rains. Yeah. And of course, he said also that there are plans for the long rains as the season commences come next year. Yeah. To show that there is increased productivity in terms of food in the country. And I want us to transition from that topic and talk about something else, and that is to do with what you'll find on the front page of